So first off, I want to thank everybody who has taken the time out of their day to join us and learn about one of the more exciting providers in the AppSmart catalog. Personally, I'm very passionate about RedStore and what they have to offer and how it differentiates from a lot of other offerings and products in the category of what some may call backup, disaster recovery, and AI malware detection. They put a good combination together for those products and services that we'll talk about a little bit later today. My name is Nick Collins. I'm the Senior Channel Manager at AppSmart. I may know a lot of the individuals on the call today. So again, thanks for coming. Quick fun fact about myself that I'll ask Heidi and Rion in a second here. In my off time, I enjoy surfing, I enjoy dirt bike riding, and most of all, I enjoy driving tractors with my two boys who are 1 and 2 years old. So those are my hobbies. Those are things that I love to do. So I'll go ahead and jump in here and I'll introduce Heidi Korlin. She is the Director of International Partner Alliances at RedStore. Heidi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I'll jump to Rion Bosker, who is a solution architect for RedStore. As we discussed earlier on the call, they are in South Africa. They are a lot of hours ahead of us, and they are working in after hours right now to go over all of the product details and information that we're going to cover today. So thank you again. And just as a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about today for everyone to get an idea of what's coming, we're going to be going over how you can increase your profitability and customer retention by unifying what I spoke about when it comes to a customer's backup, their recovery, as well as archiving and their disaster recovery. So these are things that RedStore puts together for a one product solution. Additionally, you can easily position this as threat intelligence and the critical benefits of AI malware detection within your stored data. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means in terms of malware detection from a stored data perspective. That's the new piece that I don't think many of us or anyone is really familiar with, and that's where RedStore comes in. And then we'll also talk about how to have effective and simplified customer conversations about RedStore with your customer to discuss complete protection and backup capabilities and the public cloud and SaaS. It's all related. We'll touch on all those topics today, and we'll make sure that at the end of the call, our goal is to ready you and empower you so that you know exactly how to have that conversation, when to have it, and why to introduce RedStore. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and call out to you, Heidi, to go ahead and get this started. First off, if you could share one quick fun fact about yourself, and then I'll jump into our first question for you today.
Yeah, perfect. So fun facts is, I think, a lot of people assume that females can't really play masculine sports. And fun facts for me is in my spare time, I love action cricket. I don't know if you guys have that in the States as well. So yes, I definitely play league, and I enjoy that a lot, which is very different from I think what other people would do in their spare time. So that's a fun fact.
I love it. Did you say action cricket?
It's action cricket, yes. So it's similar than cricket, but it happens a lot faster. It's almost the same size as a tennis court, and you've got 6 people on each side. So it's almost like the 2020 series, but just like a minimized version. But it's
I love it. I don't think we have that in the States, but I'll have to look into that. It sounds interesting.
Very.
So thank you, Heidi. So let's just jump in real quickly. So RedStore, like I was saying a little bit earlier, is a newer addition to AppSmart's catalog. Mm-hmm. Can you do us a favor, summarize who RedStore is? Why should advisors be considering RedStore when they're talking to their customers? And I say that because there are a lot of backup options in the market. There's a lot of advertising and marketing for backup solutions, but RedStore has a very different approach. So could you speak to that real quickly?
Absolutely. So, very true to what you say. And I mean, RedStore as a whole is a data management and protection platform organization. And I think that is really what differentiates us in the market. The RedStore's product is really designed for managed service providers and technology advisors to provide a smart all-in-one data management and protection platform to their channel and to their customers to assist them to discover, manage, and protect their customers' data all from a single interface. And we will cover throughout the topics this morning, but RedStore provides, I think the differentiator between all the other various backup providers out there is that RedStore provides a consolidated vendor platform that consists in all the areas of your traditional methods of backup and recovery, DR enablement, data archiving, which speaks to storage and cost optimization. Rihanna is going to cover a bit later on AI malware detection. So it's regardless of what your environment consists of, where your workloads and your infrastructure resides, whether it is on-premise. Some organizations might have moved into the cloud and they've got a hybrid cloud kind of scenario up and running, or they have moved to full cloud and they're making use of cloud platforms such as Azure, AWS, and Google. So regardless of where the workloads reside, RedStore would be able to provide valuable insights to organizations' data, assist them to classify and identify the types of data that they have, and put a business model together to ensure that their data is adequately protected. When disaster strikes, they'll be able to stream their data on demand to provide near zero downtime. Whilst we're doing all of that as a data protection tool, we've got the additional functionality for AI detection, for any malicious attacks, and then the archiving tool that speaks to storage and cost optimization for organizations running on-prem infrastructure as well as in the cloud. So I think in a nutshell, really just to keep it brief, is RedStore is an all-in-one consolidated vendor platform that assists the channel and the advisors to really look at one solution that can cater for so many needs and requirements and challenges in the market, and just bring it back into one umbrella that is easy to manage, easy to understand, and that can scale according to their customers' needs.
Thank you, Heidi. I think that's really important. And the one thing that I'd like to take away and just speak to some of the experience that I've had with a lot of customer conversations regarding software and their infrastructure or environment is consolidation. And it seems like that's the name of the game for a lot of organizations, enterprise, mid, or small business, is how can I work more efficiently with one vendor to comprise multiple solutions that I'm looking to build out within my environment. And that, for me, in getting to know RedStore, is exactly what you guys do, and that's what you offer. And so it's a breath of fresh air. So we appreciate that. I'm gonna turn to Rion, and feel free to jump into more detail around this question. But for people who maybe haven't gotten into the backup space and they haven't had these conversations with their customers yet, can you help us understand why is it specifically important to back up Microsoft 365 data as well as GSuite? And then secondarily, what are some of the risk factors that should be taken into consideration that advisors need to be discussing with their clients?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I think, firstly, what you have to understand when you're looking at a typical SaaS offering, there's a shared responsibility model between the vendor and the client themselves. So what you'll generally have is uptime guarantees for infrastructure, and that will be something like 365, specifically Exchange availability, mail flow availability. But what they don't do is guaranteeing the availability of the data in the case of things like accidental deletion, malicious deletion, or anything like malware, if your files are compromised in any way. Now, there's various reasons you'd want to protect the data, obviously for compliance reasons, But also in the case where you have something like malware or you have accidental deletion, you want to get that data back. Now, if you look at Microsoft and 365, they partner with organizations like Redstore, and we are IP COSA already with Microsoft themselves for exactly that reason, because they take responsibility for the infrastructure. People like Redstore, companies like Redstore really come in to look after the data that's hosted on those platforms. There's various reasons that you want to protect it. Mostly regulatory requirements you may need to keep the data for much longer than Microsoft's default, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around 30 days. So Microsoft will keep that data for you around 30 days. After that, it's the responsibility of the client really to look after the data. And then in the case of a failure, you might want to get the data out of 365 for whatever reason. Now, that could be data exgestion, or it could just be moving to a different provider. And Redstore really provides a solution that is able to cater for both those.
So the one thing that I want to clarify for everybody who's on the call, because it's a differentiating factor, and I want to make sure that we drive this home, Rian especially, is the AI and malware detection. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of my trainings, a lot of my discussions with advisors at AppSmart, we're looking at malware detection products or offerings as a third party. You guys take AI and from a malware detection standpoint, and you apply it to stored data. So essentially, I want to make sure everyone understands that what Redstore is doing is that they're finding red flags, they're finding open doors, they're finding potential malicious files or documents within a stored data environment, so that when it's pulled, if it's pulled, the user is protected. Can you speak to that real quickly, Rian, before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. So while you may have malware detection facilities on your on-premise environments, antivirus solutions, etc., malware typically lies dormant for in excess of 200 days inside live environments before they actually become active and actually compromise your data. Now, what you might find is when restoring data in the case of a malware infection or ransomware in that case, you might find that the data you're restoring is already infected because you've only kept a certain amount of data. 200 days have passed since the infection actually occurred. Your antivirus at the time didn't have the definitions to detect the data. When you start restoring that data, you restore that same malware back into your environment. Now, what Redstore is really doing is it's taking the data that you're backing up from any workload, and while we're looking after it and protecting it on our platform, we're scanning it for new and known vulnerabilities, as you've mentioned, on a file level, so that when we get to the recovery stage of any backup or recovery cycle, that we're able to guarantee that you're not restoring the bad data back into your production environments. So by the time you get back up and running, you've got the data back. You're assured that the data is clean and you're not finding yourself in exactly the same position as before malware has actually sprung up in your environment. Now, really, Redstore does that in two ways. AI malware is really one way. So that's machine learning, looking at the data that we're protecting. But also by moving the data offsite, you're removing the vulnerability of some malware to actually encrypt your backup data sets. Now, that is known to happen in environments where the malware or ransomware will actually target your backups and encrypt the data of your backups as well, leaving you with nothing to restore. So in that sense, moving the data off to the Redstore platform protects it, number one, from that ransomware infection, from encrypting your backup data, but then also proactively looks at the data that we are protecting.
So that's quite unbelievable. And the reason I say it's unbelievable is because there are not many backup, disaster recovery, or storage providers that offer a security product. And it is one thing that I think Redstore really excels in. And so from a sales and an advisor standpoint, what I think is worth pointing out before we move on to Heidi is that this is something that if you start the conversation off with your customer in terms of, is the current backup solution or storage provider that you're using today, are they searching through your files and documents to make sure that there are not any red flags or there's not malicious files and documents in that environment that you're about to pull? That is such a great way to start a new conversation and to challenge your customer so that they look to you as that expert. So keep that in mind, because that's the way that you can utilize RedStore's offering to open new doors, to have new conversations and bring in more profitability like we were talking about earlier. So Heidi, I'm going to turn a question to you if you're ready for it. So what are the key differentiators for your offerings? We talked about a few, Rion got into some of them, but what changes have you seen in the market that you can recognize that help you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's such a good question and a loaded question as well. And the biggest differentiators for RedStore is that we are cloud native. We cloud first always, even if we look at your local infrastructure or, data residing on physical or virtual workloads, we always push data to the cloud. So you've got your first and your secondary copy for redundancy purposes. Then we provide a local copy. So we always go cloud first. Aside from that is definitely the cloud connectors that we keep on expanding on as part of our product portfolio, where we've got native integration and support for applications on 365, on Google Workspace for Xero, and our development house is actively developing for integration with Salesforce. So there's the differentiators is that we keep on listening to the market. We understand the challenges and the needs, and we develop accordingly. The second thing would definitely be that RedStore is a channel-focused and channel-driven organization. So I know that we're going to speak about that a bit later on the enablement and the onboarding tools that's available, but we purely support our channel to be successful in the all-in-one data management component that is available in the market. The third one is really the consolidation platform, and we've been speaking about that since we started the webinar, and it is really unique. If you look at everything residing on-premise, hybrid, full cloud scenarios, SaaS connectors, it doesn't matter what type of data that you have, how RedStore would be able to classify that for you and protect it for you. And I think aside from that is also the storage and the cost optimization aspect, which forms part of the data archiving tool. So we don't just protect data and give it back to you. We've got the AI malware detection portion, but data archiving is really in place to free up tier 1 storage for organizations on their on-prem environment or in their cloud environment. So once we've protected the data, we've got the ability to replace the files and folders with stub files, essentially removing the physical data that they're consuming on their storage, opening up space so that they don't have to throw additional disk into their environment, keep on asking for more budget. So we can optimize the cost associated to their storage, as well as optimize how they utilize that as well. And I think the RedStore service, everything all together, is the fact that there's no upfront costs, there's no commitment or CapEx requirements that's involved. It's literally a plug and play. It's a typical SaaS service. Subscribe, start using. It's easy. It sets up in minutes, and you are up and running, and you pay for what you utilize. So I think it's just the all-inclusive component that's really key differentiators in the market.
Excellent. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, and I agree. I think that there's a lot of differentiators that RedStore has to offer in comparison to what a lot of providers do. And they do one thing, and they may do it very well. But what I've experienced with RedStore already is that you do a multitude of solution offerings, and you do every single one well, and you combine it onto one platform. So I think seamless would be a good word for describing the experience with RedStore. So Rion, I know we've talked about how RedStore differentiates itself from a data protection and storage aspect, and what you guys do a little bit differently. So I want to ask you a little bit of a different question. What have you seen in terms of the landscape of data management over the past, I'd say, 2 to 3 years? What have you experienced? What have you recognized that has changed that advisors should be considering? And I ask that because in just the past, I'd say, year, and AppSmart being one of the entities that advisors can lean on to sell SaaS and software services and be able to represent backup solutions and storage solutions for their customers. With that in mind, they're just getting into these products and these offerings. So, Rian, what have you seen in the landscape in general? And then from an advisor standpoint, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so if you look at let's look at the IT landscape in general, there's obviously been, for quite a while, there's been a move to cloud and moving to software as a service offerings. But specifically over the last couple of years, the maturity in the space has changed a bit. You have found, or some companies have found, the move to cloud hasn't gone exactly the way that they wanted. They find themselves in a hybrid scenario where half of their workloads are sitting in cloud, half are sitting on-prem. Some are utilizing SaaS services, while some are still running using normal Windows operating systems, if you think about it that way. And what's really happened is, on this cloud journey that people have been on for many years now, they found that the scalability of the solutions always come at a cost. Now, a lot of the time, the cost is at the cost of backup and redundancy. You no longer have the ability to put all your data in one place, because you may have invested in tape drives, you may have invested in on-prem kit in the form of NAS devices, or backup to a local device. Now, all of those changes, and also the change in the way that people are moving their data and where they're moving it to, means that a product really has to be everything to everyone. It's no longer just one size fits all. You can't just back up to on-prem anymore. You can't just back up to cloud. And Redstore really gives the flexibility to the end user to choose where they want to have their data. They can have cloud copies, they can have local copies. It could be a SaaS flavor, it could be an AWS machine, it could be an Azure machine. It really talks about scalability and flexibility of the product, but also the market in which we operate is changing rapidly, but people are moving in and out of various solutions, which means that you can't just cater for one type of solution and think that's going to fit the client a year from now. So it's not going to be dropping some tin and thinking you're going to have recurring revenue, because that's not going to fit in a year from today. And as Heidi has mentioned, we're continually developing into the SaaS space, and as new products and things like Azure Kubernetes and containerization of applications, as that becomes more mature and more adopted inside organizations of all sizes. That used to be the privy of the enterprise organizations. That's really getting into the SME space right now. And as Redstore grows and as the landscape changes, we're continually developing for the needs of that client. So in essence, I think, to answer your question, it's rapidly changing. It's not moving in one direction, and one size no longer fits all. You have clients that have invested in 365 and cloud offerings now wanting to get out of it. And they need something like Redstore that gives them the option of getting the data out without incurring penalties, without incurring exgestion costs or expensive migrations. And really, that's what Redstore is offering.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, because a lot of the conversations that I've had over the past year plus with AppSmart, I've found that having a solution provider, especially in the backup protection, disaster recovery, and malware protection, flexibility is so critical. And the reason why is I've found that even small, mid, or enterprise environments, less the enterprise level, sometimes they'll have Microsoft and Google licensing.
Yeah.
The ability to allow your end users the choice of OS system that they use, and the choice of device, and the choice of maybe even the cloud that you use, the cloud storage or the cloud workload. Working with Redstore, from everything that we're talking about today, you can work with any end user, any cloud, any environment, because you have a neutral platform. And so I think that's what really helps from an advisor perspective. You can go and work with any customer, no matter the size, and Redstore's flexibility has the ability to take in whatever data from wherever it's coming and however they'd like to manage it. And that's a strong benefit. And that's a reason why you want to have some Redstore conversations. I just wanted to point that out. So to Heidi and Rian, because we probably have a lot of technical advisors and advisors who may want to take this and put this in front of their customers, what are some of the techniques that you guys have seen from an approach point of view, as well as maybe triggers and cues as far as when should an advisor bring Redstore into the conversation? What's triggering and offering up a cue for them to have that conversation? Can you tell any success stories for us to lean on that we can use?
Yeah, so I'll kick that off, Rian, and then you can follow with some success stories and add some pieces to it. But I think if the advisors want to look for certain techniques, what we've definitely seen and the conversations that we've assisted with is specifically related to consolidation of various data protection solutions. You've got various vendors that's catering for on-premise only, and you have to invest in second and third products to get your data offsite. Then there's a third or a fourth vendor to start looking at protecting your data on SaaS applications. So I definitely think that is a trigger just to understand what your customers' landscapes consist of. What is their business goals going forward for the next 6 to 12 months, to understand their journey and where they're going and how you would be able to assist them. Specifically, what Rian mentioned previously is around the data portability piece, which is also true to Redstore, which is part of our proprietary software called Instant Data, which is what we're using to provide instant access to backed up data for organizations in case of a DR. So that is really the data portability component. We use that technology to move data from on-premise to the cloud or between various cloud platforms. So it's understanding the landscape, their business requirements, and how they're moving forward. But most importantly is that consultative approach is really understanding the challenges that's associated, managing their current environments. It's not always just related to data protection services, but it can be infrastructure, the resources that's managing that, the cost associated to it, time, complex pricing models that's out in the market. So it's really just unpacking what is the core challenges and pains that the organizations or the end users are experiencing, and what would we be able to alleviate to free up time, save cost, open up resources, save storage, and provide a consolidated view that is easy to manage and scale. So I think it's probably be those 3 points that would be triggers that I would look out for.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rian.
Yeah, just to add to that, when you're talking to clients, various triggers, people with multi-cloud strategies, AWS, Azure, GSuite, 365, if they're either moving to them or moving from them, that might be a trigger where you might want to introduce Redstore. Where you have complex on-prem environments or multi-site environments where you need to be backing up from multiple locations across various geographies. And when I say various geographies, that's worldwide. So that's really across the US, the UK, Europe, Africa, Australia. We have data centers all over the world really catering for that data piece. Another thing that you might find, hardware refreshes. If clients are looking to invest in any new kit on-prem, you might want to introduce Redstore to archive data that they're not accessing at the moment. If they're not using the data, that hardware refresh could be a lot cheaper using our archiving technology and removing the actual stale data from the machines before you start moving them between clouds, even if it's a cloud migration. Those are all really triggers that I could mention from a Redstore perspective.
Okay, and so really quickly, we have a question that came in, and I think Heidi, as well as Rian, you partially answered it through your explanations recently, but I want to make sure we touch on it. And this question from John: where is the customer's data physically stored, and what kind of backup do they have? And I think what maybe John's looking to ask is, how do you take care of customers' data from a hybrid standpoint, from when they want a hybrid storage environment from an on-prem and a cloud perspective? How do you guys handle that? And then after this, I've got another question for you.
Right, I'll take that one. So when we're backing up to the cloud, so Redstore is cloud first. For US customers, we store data inside the Azure cloud. That's Azure Central and East. So we keep 2 copies of data. So we always back up to a primary location that has redundancy built into it, so that's geographically redundant. And then we also transfer the data to a secondary data center, which is Azure East in the US. So when we're talking about the physical location of the actual backups, that's in Azure. If you're looking at on-prem, again, you can keep a local copy on, let's say, a NAS device as well. So keep a third copy of the data, but the first 2 copies of data will sit in Azure when we're talking from a US perspective.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that, Rian. So my question is in regards to when a customer or a user wants to pull data from that archived instance and they want to pull out files or docs and review them. And more specifically to your streaming offering and how that's done. Can you speak to what streaming means to RedStore?
Yeah, so when we're talking about streaming, that's really what we call our instant data technology. Now, in the case of a recovery, you might have multiple terabytes of data that you'll be restoring over an internet line. Now, that could delay the backup, or sorry, the recovery rather, to a couple of hours instead of minutes. Now, what we do is we stage the data as stub files to the local operating system. The backup happens in the background, so it'll download the data while you actually start working immediately. So those stub files are accessible, they read, write, and you can start working from the moment you start the recovery instead of having to wait for that large data download to happen. Now, what it will do is it'll prioritize and stream literally any type of file that you need access to. So from an end user perspective, or even an application perspective on the operating systems that we protect, you're able to start working immediately and you don't have to wait for the data to download over the internet.
Excellent. So would you say that that's another unique offering that RedStore is providing in the market?
Absolutely. Yeah. So near zero recovery times is something that's very unique.
At a fraction of the cost, if you can add that as well. It's substantially different if you're paying for tools, for live replication and high availability, to have access to that kind of functionality. And I think that's a substantial differentiator from a RedStore perspective as well, that everything that we have mentioned on the call forms part of a single solution. There's no grey cost or unpredictable cost, that you wouldn't be aware of. So it's literally an all-inclusive service and platform.
So that brings me to before we get close to some of the final questions, it brings me to top of mind a question for you, Heidi, that I think you can explain pretty well. And when it comes to fraction of the cost, right? I don't want to say that this is a price point exercise for RedStore and that's where you want to bring RedStore in, but how do you compete when it comes to price point and when it comes to archived or stored data, how you manage it and how that benefits the client at a fraction of the cost? Can you explain that?
Sure. So the RedStore service is all inclusive in terms of a storage capacity utilization. So we've got an insights tool available as well, which can scan through a customer's data, really identifying what is business critical. So that's where the data classification piece comes into play, where we can scope a proper business solution for an organization, identifying what's business critical, when last files has been accessed, what's stale data, what can we archive off. So if we have to work on what is the organization's recovery time objectives, we would be able to use that insights tool to identify you've got a certain subset of your data which is business critical. We need to ensure that we would be able to meet the RTOs that might be 2 hours or 4 hours in order to get the data back for users to execute and access against the data. Where archiving forms part of it as well, that's all inclusive in the rate, like Rian explained, that we would be able to remove some of the physical storage on tier 1 infrastructure and use the same instant data functionality to retrieve the files back for users to access. So whether that is just backup and recovery that you're looking for, whether that is DR, whether it's storage and cost optimization for data archiving, it's all inclusive in a rate. And I think it's the differentiator there as well is it's predictable costs. There's no great costs creeping in. There's no complex license fees. There's no cost on massive storage volumes. Is whatever you have that is business critical that you need to protect, that is what we would bill via RedStore and AppSmart. And we're also able to retain that data for extensive periods of time to meet your organization's compliance. So whether you need to retain data for a period of 2 years or 3 years, we will still bill you for the front end selector data, all inclusive, and we'll retain it for as long as you need.
Excellent. So you probably know your competition very well, both Rian and Heidi. Is this another offering, an aspect of RedStore that you'd say sets you apart from others in the backup storage, malware detection, and disaster recovery market?
Definitely. It speaks to everything that you've just mentioned. So backup capabilities, DR capabilities, archiving, protection of various applications. If we start talking about SaaS connectors, licenses for 365, for Google, for Xero, whether you've got data that's residing in Azure, for instance, you might not want to make use of Azure data protection, but you don't want all your eggs in one basket, for example. You definitely want a subset of your data outside of that realm. So I think it definitely speaks to the competition, especially the fact that RedStore provides the infrastructure at no additional cost. So that goes back to the no upfront investment, that there's no CapEx required. You don't have to invest in infrastructure. We're hardware agnostic as well. So it's really a simple software as a service model where it's plug and play and start utilizing it to benefit the organization.
Great. Okay, good. And I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what really sets you apart, because I think it's very important for any advisor in the market today that's going out and looking to have a conversation about backup, DR, malware detection of your data environment, that they understand why RedStore is a unique offering, that it really will help you have newer conversations with customers. And I think what we're all looking for from an advisor, point of view is your customers are looking, what can you introduce me to that I haven't heard of before? What are some new ideas? You're my consultant. You're my technical advisor. I'm leaning on you to bring new things to the table that will help benefit my organization. That is RedStore. And so keep that in mind when it comes to backup and DR and differentiators that will help you have new conversations. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball question in here for whoever wants to take it and grab it. Tell us a story of an advisor, a consultant that you've worked with that maybe hadn't sold RedStore before, and they introduced you to one of their clients. And can you talk to us about that process, or that aha moment when that client got on the phone with RedStore and they saw a lot of these features and benefits? Talk to us about an instance or a story to that tune.
Yeah, happy to take that one. So we've been engaging with some of the advisors, and really the aha moment really happens pretty quickly when you open the web console and you see all the various technologies listed on the left-hand side, and you see things like Azure Kubernetes, you see machines, 365 GSuite, and it really, for the first time, you can see data management in one platform. Really, the key differentiator when it comes to RedStore is all-in-one data management. So it's not a portion of data that's being protected by one product and another portion by some other product. So the moment you open that console and someone can see all of their data in one place, dashboarded and easy to understand ways, I think the RedStore value proposition becomes very clear. So in all the engagements we've had so far, that would definitely be the aha moment for me when they first see the actual web consoles.
Okay, so getting that demo or getting that conversation or first engagement is key. And I think that what we all have to understand is that when we put RedStore in front of a customer, a client, or whoever it may be, an end user, once they see that console, and the same with me, and my experience when I first engaged with you and Heidi, is that there's something different about the way that you view managing data with RedStore. And so thank you, Rian, for pointing that out. Heidi, let's talk about sales, right? And sales process and engagement with RedStore for a second. How can advisors engage with RedStore's sales team? What do you have to offer that they can leverage in terms of potential collateral, marketing tools? How are you helping advisors close deals and maximize any incentives that you guys have? And I'm not sure if you want to talk about SPIFFs. I'm not sure if you want to talk about those aspects. Then let's jump into that, if you don't mind.
Sure. There's a couple of questions. I'm going to try backtrack. If I miss one of them, then just remind me. But if we talk about the engagement model, at the beginning of this call, I mentioned that RedStore's channel focused. So from a sales and marketing perspective, RedStore is one of the platinum sponsors with AppSmart for this year. And the marketing team has really been working quite extensively with AppSmart to integrate all RedStore related information to all the products that we've mentioned today, as well as mailer campaigns that can be utilized, specifically that's SaaS driven, AI malware driven, or infrastructure data protection driven. That is available on the AppSmart Marketer platform for all the advisors. So they would be able to have access to that marketing toolkit that will assist them to take these products to their customers, everything pre-populated. It's literally just slapping on logos, getting your customers' information on there, and then just distribute. From there on, we've got, in terms of the sales and pre-sales enablement, we have teams available that can assist with that consultative approach as well. Really just supporting the advisors from a sales and pre-sales perspective, understanding the customer's environments, understanding their challenges and their landscapes, their business models, and how they want to move forward, and really just try to consolidate and put one single solution together. Furthermore to that, we've got technical account managers that would assist the technology advisors understanding the product end to end. So from a client perspective as well as a back end perspective, what is the capabilities? How do you support and manage the platform and your customers' data? So we will spend time with the advisors to provide that first and second line support, which forms part of their existing service level agreements, managed services that they're offering to their clients, and escalations would be filtered through to RedStore. So in terms of the enablement portions, that is all there from sales, from a support perspective, as well as marketing. And then we've also got a RedStore app, which is an online certification platform. I absolutely love that tool. It's something that you can use, or you can download the app on the iStore, or you can use its web progressive app, so you can download sales or pre-sales content, really get an understanding of what is RedStore about? How do you position it? What's the key differentiators? On a pre-sale side is how do you demo it? How do you run a proof of concept? So it's got various modules that's built into it to certify advisors from a sales, pre-sales, and a support perspective. So there's a lot of tools that is available from RedStore and AppSmart to enable the technology advisors to take this product to market.
So one thing that I want to touch on that you mentioned in your comments is utilizing RedStore's content within the AppSmart Marketer. And to clarify that for everybody on the call, AppSmart provides a marketing tool that providers like RedStore will fill email, social media content like Twitter, LinkedIn, for you to establish and run campaigns. So if you're looking to develop an outbound strategy, send emails, create a social media presence, RedStore, what Heidi has alluded to, has created templates for all of that content for you. It's ready. in the AppSmart Marketer, which is an extremely powerful tool. I highly suggest you go and you look into your portal in the marketplace and find out more about the AppSmart Marketer from your local channel sales manager. And these campaigns allow you to upsell, dive deeper with your client base, your current account base, or have new conversations with logos that you haven't had before. And as you can tell from the conversations we're having today with Heidi and Rion, there are a lot of different subjects that if you're looking to get in the door with a new customer, you can have conversations that will challenge that customer. And I can assure you, they'll want to talk to you more just to simply learn more about the Red Store offering. So again, I highly suggest you utilize that content and those campaigns in the AppSmart Marketer with Red Store. So can you also tell me a little bit about the no cap SPIFF incentives? What does that mean, Heidi?
So what we've, I think that's obviously a very exciting part. What we've done is put a SPIFF in place for technology advisors, which is running from the 1st of March up until the 31st of May. So there's at least still 2 months left to take advantage of this SPIFF. But it's really a 3-step process, which is very easy. It is just to identify and register an opportunity via the Red Store website for deal registration. Once we've closed and we've worked on the opportunity where the advisor seeks assistance, you've got Red Store resources available to assist. Likewise, from an AppSmart perspective, you've got the technical consultants that's available to assist with these kind of engagements as well. Once we've closed the order and the customer commits to a 12-month agreement, Red Store would give 50% of the first month's contract value, that is the Red Store contract value, to the advisor as a kickback. So that can be done in various forms, but that is really just 50% of the contract value that we would give back. And I think that is really a fantastic incentive or SPIFF. We call it incentives in South Africa. I'm sure it's pretty much the same in the States as well. And there's no cap associated to that. If you've really got customers and you onboard 2,365 seats, fantastic. If you've got 10 or 20 or 50 terabytes of data that you're onboarding from an infrastructure side, we would most definitely not cap that within the time frame for the SPIFF, which, like I said, it started the 31st of March and it will end. We just need to make sure that we close off and we bill by the 31st of May. And you will qualify for 50% of the value back.
That's quite a SPIFF. I'm just doing some numbers in my head of potential opportunities, and for 50% of total contract value. Again, that's, a lot of us think of SPIFFs in terms of MRR.
That's the first month's value. So maybe let's not look at the total contract value, because that would be absolutely amazing. That would be smashing. But it's
challenge you there.
Yeah, you did. I was like, woo, okay, I don't know how I'm going to get that one signed off, but it's 50% of the first month's revenue.
Perfect. So thinking about that potential and how large, especially if you bring an enterprise deal or a mid-market opportunity, it's a great offer from Red Store. So we're very appreciative of that. Heidi, from another sales perspective, is there anything else that you'd like the advisors who might engage with Red Store, is there anything else that you'd like them to know about process, best practice, from pre-sales to post-sales?
Yeah, so I mean, from pre-sales, like I've mentioned, that we do have resources available in terms of the certification process, human resources available as well, to assist with end user engagements. But we would assist with the qualification and the deeper understanding, the consultative approach again. We can assist with product demonstrations. Like Rian said, we've had some calls with technology advisors, and when they see the Red Store app and the functionality that's available in a single view, that was the aha moment. We're happy to facilitate product demonstrations, proof of concepts on demand. Typically the software works, and once they see it's plug and play and they're up and and running, but we can run proof of concepts as and when an organization really wants to test. So from pre-sales all the way to deployment, that you would really have the provider that will support the technology advisors end to end until they feel comfortable and they would be able to do that efficiently themselves. But bar the process, I think it would be useful, to reach out to your channel sales manager, set up a one-to-one session with the Red Store team. Let's understand your business. Let's understand the products that you take to market. How would we be able to bundle services? What kind of opportunities can we assist in generating with yourselves and your teams to go to your end customers? That's really what my experience is, and the people that is in my team. So you've got 10 plus years experience in channel and building and enablement. So I think the only request from my side is reach out to your channel sales manager, set up the one-to-one, and let's start engaging with you and start the onboarding and enablement process.
Excellent. Yeah, I think a lot of advisors are looking for a little bit of education on your product, most likely before they approach their customers, so that they have something to speak to and they have some sort of range of understanding of what they're going to be promoting. So anyone on the call that would like a dedicated one-on-one, you can call it session or quick, training with Heidi and the team and Rion, let us know. Please reach out to your local channel sales manager. Let them know that you're interested in learning a little bit more. They'll set up the call and the engagement with Red Store for you, so you can learn a little bit more, become more comfortable, if that's what the case is, to take this in front of your client base. So we had a couple questions over the range of the call, so we appreciate that for everyone who jumped in and asked us a couple more specificities. I just want to say, though, thank you for everyone for joining us. Thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Rion, for giving us some good insight into a new product and offering that, like I said in the beginning of the call, as we all sit at home and we're in front of our computers all day long and we're constantly selling new solutions, it's always nice, I can speak for myself at least, to have a new product and solution in the telecom and the SaaS space that really sets themselves apart. And really, it should be used as a way for advisors to get into new doors, have new conversations, challenge themselves, and challenge their clients to consider new solutions like Red Store. So please keep that in consideration. Also, I want a quick little note here is don't forget, as these are some of the webinars that we hold, but don't forget that AppSmart has the Unleash event. It's taking place April 20th and April 21st. If you guys want more information and to register, just visit unleash.appsmart.com. If you wouldn't mind, put my name in the reference field for the registration form. We've got an unbelievable lineup of speakers, and it's going to be an action-packed virtual event. And I've seen some of the keynote speakers myself, and it's intriguing. It'll be fun, and it will be something different and new, kind of like Red Store. So there is a little chat in the survey here. If you don't mind filling that survey out and giving us some feedback on the webinar for Heidi, for Rion, and myself, we'd really appreciate it. Before we jump off, Heidi, Rion, any closing comments?
I think I've done mine. We definitely just want to engage and assist where we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking forward to working with everyone, and please feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, again. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Rion. And we'll see you on the next AppSmart webinar.